So every single day you are living as a fraction of what you truly are. You are trapped by the boundaries of your five senses, completely unaware that there are infinite dimensions of existence that are available to you right now. And I'm about to show you exactly how to open that inner eye and step into your divine nature to see through those restrictions of the five senses and to step into these infinite dimensions of self. Let's start with the word mysticism, because it is through mysticism, the teachings of the ancients, the ancient wisdom teachings, that this is revealed to us. The word mystic has been thrown around so much that it has lost a lot of its true meaning. People think that mystics are some kind of supernatural beings who descend from another world, but that's not the case, because what few people tell you is that there is no other world. Everything is of this creation, and the only difference between you and a mystic is that they simply broke through these limitations of ignorance, while most people are still operating within the boundaries that the five physical senses have set for them. So you can think about it in this way. When you analyze the body, when you look at your body, what do you see? What do you feel? You see flesh, bones, blood, and all of this is accumulated over time. The flesh you have right now, the bones you have right now, they're not your true being. You simply took them as layers onto you, onto yourself. Because before this, before you accumulated all this physical mass, you were something much more fundamental, and really you still are. And that something is non-physical. But because your perception right now is so limited to what your senses can detect, your physical senses, that most essential part of your existence, that most essential part of your nature remains completely out of bounds for many people. And this is what the mystics refer to as the prison of sense perception. Your sense organs can only perceive the physical dimension of life. They are like prison guards, keeping you locked within a tiny, tiny cell when you actually own the entire mansion, the entire kingdom. Of course, in scripture it tells us the kingdom of heaven is within. You are a king, and the kingdom of heaven is yours. So when I say you're living in limitation, I mean you've mistaken the accumulated, which means your body, but also your thoughts, your emotions. You've mistaken that what you have accumulated for the accumulator, which is what you truly are. Now, I use scripture as one of the most important mystical texts. People have mistaken it for a religious text, but it was written by mystics for mystics. And so in Ephesians it is written, and I quote, "Having the eyes of your understanding being enlightened, that ye may know what is the hope of his calling." And so it doesn't say the physical eyes here. It talks about the eyes of understanding. And this is that divine vision that has been closed off by so many people that are fast asleep to this divine, this essential truth, and that are still completely dependent on sensory perception. And so you, like most likely most people, have been taught that you can only trust what you see, what you hear, what you touch, what you taste, what you smell. But what if I told you that that very limitation is exactly what is keeping you from experiencing the fullness, the realness of your own divine nature? What if the mystic isn't someone who has gained something extra on top of this, on top of the physical senses, but rather someone who has simply stopped limiting themselves to the physical by the physical? And so mystics really only exist because there are too many mistakes on this planet of ours. The biggest mistake is your confused understanding of the perception of reality. You've confused this perception for reality itself. You think what you perceive through the senses is all there is, when in reality you're only seeing a small, tiny, limited fraction of existence. And so think about it like this. There are two people that are looking at the same exact mountain. And one person sees rock and dirt, and the other sees geological layers spanning millions of years, mineral compositions, the mountain's effect on weather and patterns, its role in the ecosystem, its role in myth and stories. And so the second person isn't supernatural by any means. They simply have a broader perception. And when your perception transcends the limitations of physicality, when you begin to access dimensions of existence that most people can't see, well, suddenly you get labeled as a mystic or as a magician or as a spiritual person. But you haven't become anything different somehow. You're simply become more fully human. You've stopped these limitations, and now you're embracing the full sense. You're beginning to see with the spiritual eye. Again, Scripture talks more about this in Corinthians. It says, "But the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned." And so the natural man here is speaking about one whose perception is limited to the realm of senses. The spiritual man is one whose inner eye has been opened. And so to unlock that inner vision, that inner divine vision, that true sight, it is about realizing that what you call you is not the accumulated body or mind, but the one that accumulates. Understanding that opens this eye. So stop identifying with this temporary physical self and start to recognize that eternal, much grander, truly infinite self. This is what practical mysticism is all about, and it begins with this insight, it begins with this realization. So this divine vision isn't something you need to develop or acquire. You don't need to do a Kundalini meditation to open the third eye or something like that. Because the third eye is really the one eye. It's your eye. It's the eternal eye. There's nothing to open there. You just have to start seeing with it. It has been there all along, you see, simply buried under these layers of sensory conditioning and false identification. When you were a child, you believed you could fly, you talked to imaginary friends, you created entire worlds in your mind. A stick was a sword, and all these toys that you had felt alive, they felt real. And that wasn't some childish imagination. That really was your mystical, your natural mystical capacity before the world convinced you to limit yourself. So the process of opening this inner eye, this true eye, isn't about gaining new abilities, but really more about removing these obstacles that block your natural divine perception. It's about recognizing that the boundaries you experience are self-imposed limitations, not actual walls. It is all about this shift in perception that opens your inner eye. The divine vision you seek isn't hidden in ancient texts or secret rituals. It's not locked away in mystical traditions or available only to special people of certain bloodlines or something like that. It is your natural state, no matter the culture, no matter the race, no matter where you're from, no matter your conditions, no matter your history. It has simply been obscured by this mistake of limiting your perception to what your senses can detect, being asleep to your true self. When you stop making this fundamental error, that moment you recognize that your consciousness itself experiencing existence through these temporary forms, then your inner eye opens. And you don't become something special, you don't become a mystic or a sorcerer or a sage. You simply stop being ignorant of your true nature. And people, of course, again, they have these special words for that. They want to label on that, but the only difference is being asleep or being awake. The true nature doesn't change. If you would like to learn more and to awaken your understanding, to realize this truth on a deeper level, there's a video here on screen which will greatly benefit you. I invite you to watch it. Thank you and goodbye.